Conner Weigman, Houston Cougar quarterback, just as we all predicted when he came out of high school. Parker Ainsworth, Locked On Houston Cougars, joining me to discuss. Parker, what was your initial reaction to this move?
I was excited, but I got to be honest, there's a lot of relief because it had kind of been hinted at throughout the week leading up to it. And I was kind of worried about what would happen if it didn't happen, being really honest.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly not the school that I think a lot of people would have pegged as the destination for a former five-star quarterback who wasn't great per se in the time he started this year, but was 4-1 with the Aggies when he started. So it wasn't a complete and total disaster, but what Wegman needs is a situation where he's allowed to be the guy, stay healthy, and have a chance to put it all together. Can Houston give him that to take that next step in the Big 12?
Well, I think there's a couple parts that are all starting to unfold now. You mentioned stay healthy. Some of that obviously is on him and his makeup, and it does seem to be a real issue of his in the past. But they also have seen in the last 24 hours, or the first 24 hours after his official signing, they've signed offensive linemen that want to come play in a system with Wegman and Nagel, the new offensive coordinator, and stuff like that. So I think that that's going to kind of build on itself, all towards next season. And as far as like a chance to show off what he can do and his skills and things like that, we've seen Nagel work with Michael Pratt at Tulane. Like I think that there's a lot of crossover there as well. So there's a chance it can all work out, and I think we're starting to see the linemen show up that could be a big part of that as well.
Was that one of the things you feel like was a big weakness for Houston this year? Was the offensive line? Wasn't it? I know they got hit hard in the portal last offseason. It was really, really rough. Guys like Matthew Golden go to Texas and have great seasons. He wasn't the only wide receiver that left. But when you looked at this Houston roster, did you feel like the offensive line was maybe even a bigger need than the quarterback, or do you think Wigman is a more important guy there?
Well, and I've said before that Zion Chris, the guy who ended up being the starter for most of the season last year, can be a successful Division One starting quarterback in a different offense with different linemen and different, like it would be a very different looking team. It just wasn't put together for him necessarily. And I don't know that they thought he was going to be the guy. I do think that while like one or two offensive linemen had decent years last year, as a unit, it was really poor. And bluntly, a lot of those guys were just backups the year before, and the year before wasn't great, right? So that was just kind of what you knew you were walking into. And so, like I said, we've kind of put that at the forefront of our portal thoughts. I think there's a lot of intentionality in Wegman signing when he did at the front end of the window here. This weekend, as we're going into the Friday, going into the weekend, a lot of people are coming onto campus on their official visits that are in the transfer portal, and they know when they come on their visit that they're going to be blocking for an offense that at least has a former five-star quarterback, right? Like all of the things aside, they know that piece is already in the puzzle.
Conner Weigman's a big name because of the profile he had coming out of high school, the school he played at, Texas A&M. Do you feel like he is more than that for Houston, or do you think this is going to be, or do you think it could be, I should say, a situation where it's, oh, hey, remember Conner Weigman, now he's playing at Houston and there, whatever. Like, how much does he individually elevate this offense for Willie Fritz above what they had this season?
Well, it's a city and university that are used to having good quarterback play. I think this past couple years kind of been the exception. You have the Case Keenums, the Greg Wards, even Clayton Tune, who's an NFL backup right now. And for the American Athletic Conference, that was a big deal, right? As you look at it now, I think assuming he stays healthy, obviously there's like the ceiling and he's the five-star toolkit, all those everything. I think weirdly there's an argument that this is a successful signing, commitment, etc., almost no matter what, because the sales pitch has always been we need to get these five-star kids to come back or stay in Houston and make it the cool thing to do. And if he's going to bring a gang of offensive line with him and he's going out and tweeting at guys and whatever, like that's already successful, at least in like that the theory worked. If he, can't stay healthy because he couldn't stay healthy at A&M, whatever. If it's a little bit different because he just needs a fresh start, great. But there's almost, I think, a stronger argument to say like we've been saying we need to be able to do this, and now we've shown that we can, right? And that's a big deal for the first full year under Willie Fritz.
What does the arrival of Wegman do to your expectations for Houston's offense?
Well, it'd be hard to be. I mean, you hope that they'd be better than last year before that, because
One would think, one would hope. Fingers crossed. Prayers up for the Cougars fans
yeah,
out there.
they were the worst offense in Power Four football last year for the folks listening that probably didn't follow the Houston Cougars. I think it really does, though, put an onus on the offense to, score more than 20 points a game. They lost a lot of games last year simply because they couldn't put like a second or third touchdown in. The defense was phenomenal and all that, right? I think truthfully, you're looking at a team that's like probably already had some bowl game expectations, but now it feels like that's like almost a floor. Like if Weigman is healthy, winning 6 games in the Big 12 next year doesn't feel like a reach at all, right? Again, you mentioned he was 4-1 at A&M last year. The year before, he got off to a hot start, had 8 touchdowns and 2 interceptions before he got hurt in 2023. I mean, he's a really good quarterback, and you've got a lot of defensive talent returning. So I think that all of these things put together, I think that it kind of raises your floor expectation and kind of puts it what you might have had as a ceiling, a bowl game or something like that, almost at your kind of replaces your floor.
When you think about this first season for Willie Fritz at the helm, they surpassed my expectations. After the early loss to UNLV, I thought this could be 0-12. This could go downhill really quickly. And I give Willie Fritz a lot of credit, because after they won their first game, I thought, I don't think they're going to win another one. I just can't see it. But they walk away with 4 wins with the schedule they had, Parker. That feels like a good season. I know it doesn't sound like a lot to people listening, but I think about guys who have built programs, that aren't necessarily getting as much attention, like a Deion Sanders at Colorado. Think of like a Jed Fish at Arizona or a Jonathan Smith at Oregon State. The first year, you take your lumps, because it's just not easy. It's not a quick turnaround. It's not an immediate microwave sort of process. It's, hey, you got to show that you can do something in your first year. Then in your second year, you show you can take a step forward. And then that third year is when it feels like the arrival happens. Jonathan Smith, year 1 Oregon State, 2 wins. Jed Fish, year 1 at Arizona, 1 win. Those guys both had double-digit win seasons at non-traditional football powers by the time they ended up moving on elsewhere. Do you feel like this was the first step along that process that Willie Fritz was looking for?
Entirely, and you mentioned last year, looking.
I was
at
wondering who Tyler was, but yes.
But you mentioned last year and going 4-8 and all of that. But as much as people want to talk about what Deion did and bringing people in the transfer portal to Colorado and how fast that can make your rebuild, the other side of that coin is what happened to Houston when Dana Holgorsen left. A lot of his guys left. You mentioned Matthew Golden, but Sam Brown is one of Cam Ward's leading receivers at Miami. A bunch of defensive linemen got in the portal and followed their position coach out. It was really a mass exodus into the portal because of the coaching change, kind of the inverse of what happened in Colorado. And to have the exact same record with an arguably more difficult schedule, you had to go to Norman. You faced a couple top 25 teams. You ended up knocking off Kansas State for kind of a signature win and feel-good game for Houston in the rain in the city of Houston. It really, I think, was a little ahead of schedule for the rational folks. Now, there are always going to be Houston fans, like there are any college football fan base, like, didn't go bowling, ultimate failure. Didn't get 8 or 9. Oh my God, we're awful. Like those, and that was never going to happen in the first year. I think that truthfully, like if you'd have snuck out 1 or 2 more touchdowns here or there, maybe, but this offense was never going to be built for that.
Yeah, I feel like going into next year, the expectation for success, based on what you've said, is you got to make a bowl game now. Like as long as Weigman's healthy. If Weigman gets hurt, okay, that throws you into a tough situation. But if Weigman's there, it feels like 6, 7, maybe 8 wins could be in the cards.
And if he were to get hurt again, first of all, I mean, what a horrible story for the kid, right? I mean, he just can't stay healthy any season.
Time and again.
Because he's a 5-star kid, right? Like he's got the tools. But the trick is really if he stays healthy, you look at last year's team, and again, they're a bowl team if they score 3 touchdowns a game. They would have been, right? First of all, they lost to Oklahoma.
Call Houston the Iowa of the Big 12.
They really kind of were, actually. But the same Oklahoma team that knocked off Alabama by a bajillion points, Houston was down by 2 with 3 minutes left in that game. Iowa State, who played in the Big 12 championship game, it was 3-0 at the end of the third. They just couldn't score, and now they get a former 5-star quarterback. I've been told to say, I think that's a good sign. I think that helps.
You heard it here first, folks, from Parker Ainsworth lips to your ears. Houston wants Bama. Locked On Cougars on YouTube, wherever you get your podcast. Parker, appreciate the time.
It'd be better than it was in basketball, I guess.
Yeah. Appreciate everyone listening. I'll see you next time. And until then, hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.